Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to be making applesauce. These are locally grown apples. I am in New York State, and this is a guide of many of the apples that are grown in New York State. And you can see I've marked it all up to what I like about each different variety and what I don't like. And I add to it every year. And there's a few apples that are not on this one, but that's been with me for about 6 or 7 years. Anyway, these are the apples that I have in my cold storage right now. I do have this one, and I'm not sure what it is. It may be what is called Paula Red, but we'll see. These are Ida Reds. They have a yellowish flesh. They're a firm apple, and I like them. They're really good for cooking. They hold up, they hold their shape, and they're crisp, and they have a slight tart flavor to them. These are tried and true Golden Delicious. They are mildly sweet, very juicy, but again, they hold up also. Their shape doesn't get too mushy. For applesauce, I really don't like too of a mushy apple. John Gold's, these are perhaps my favorite for cooking. They are a mid to late season apple, meaning they're picked at the end of the season, probably in late October. These are Snow Sweets. These are an early season one. It's a relatively new variety in New York, maybe, I don't know, 7 years or so. But they have a nice white flesh to them. They're sweet, they're very juicy. They're a very nice eating apple. But anyway, these are the varieties that I have out in my cold storage, which is otherwise known as my mudroom. Anyway, and they seem to do very well out there. In my family, we don't make traditional applesauce. My applesauce is what my mother used to call fried apples. And the apples usually retain their shape, however you cut them. She never cooked them too long, so they were in chunks. And she just passed on that idea for me. And so that's what I've been cooking for most of my adult life. And now the grandkids call them Grammy's applesauce. And this is what they like, and this is what they expect nearly all year long. So I do freeze many, many bags of apples. I have them fresh out in my cold storage room. And they do last until February or so, and then they start getting just a little bit soft. And then I'll slice them all up and put them in the freezer, or I dehydrate them for just regular snacking. But what we're going to do is I'm going to start slicing some of these up, and I'm going to show you my method. So I will start with this one that I had already cut. This is an Ida Red. And I do have a fancy attachment on my KitchenAid mixer that will, slice and dice and core and everything. But sometimes I feel that I can just do it just as quickly by hand. So what I do is I cut it, and then I'll slice it just to the right of the core and turn it, and slice it just to the right of the core again. And then you just have the core, and that goes in the pile. And this is about the size I use, and I put it in my pot, just like that. I'll just cut these up. Like that. And let's get into this one, because I'm not really sure which one this is. Ah, yes, I can smell it already. This is an Ida Red. It is still nice and or excuse me, it's a Paulette. It's still nice and firm, and it smells. I can tell almost by the smell. So I'm not too concerned if there's a few peels on my applesauce. Oh, and there's a seed. Well, I'm not going to have you come with me while I slice up all these. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cook some applesauce in this small saucepan. It's probably, about 8 or 9 inches. Usually when I have a crowd, it gets the big saucepan. And probably about 10 apples in the big one. This one probably I will do maybe about 6 or 7. And I'm gonna slice all of these up, and then I'll be back and show you how I progress. I'm back. I finished cutting up 7 apples, fit nicely in here. This is going to go way down. I always like to make, I should say, a mix of apples. It just lends itself to the flavor a little bit better. Now, to this, I usually add a 1/4 cup of water. At the very most, you want a little bit of liquid in the bottom of your pan because this is going to go on the stove. I happen to have a little apple cider. So instead of water, I'm just going to add a little bit of apple cider to this. That was probably about a 1/4 cup. This is going to go on the stove with a top on it, so it creates a little steam bath in here to start cooking these apples. So let me do that, and I'll bring you back when that reaches the temperature. I bring it to a boil. You can hear it bubbling. And this is probably at about a medium-high heat. And then I turn it down low, just to a simmer, so it keeps that steam cooking those apple slices. All right, I'm in about 3 minutes or so, and this is what it looks like. At this point, I stir it up a little bit because the ones on the bottom are getting a little bit mushier. I don't do too much stirring. The more you stir, the mushier the apples will get, unless of course that's the way you like it. Of course we like it a little chunky, so I'm not going to stir too much. You can see they're deflating a little bit. This one still has a ways to cook. Some are softening quite a bit, but keep that top on it. And it has a few more minutes to cook. Okay, here we are, 5 minutes later. And this is what it looks like. It's bubbling, it's juicy. It's got a lot of juice here. And maybe you don't want that much juice. So at this point in time, I will just take the cover off and let it go for maybe a minute. Most of the apple slices are softened. There's a few that are harder. This is a different variety. This is probably the Jonagold. And here's a Snow Sweet. See how white that is? At this point, if you stir it up a lot, the apples will all lose their shape and you will get a more appley sauce consistency. I don't like that, so at this point I just let it go like this for about a minute on the stove. Some of this moisture will evaporate, so it won't be, so runny. But I will be back in just a minute, and then we'll turn it off and ready for the next step. Okay, that was a minute. I like the way it is. It's reduced in volume by about half. And that's always the sad part, because you think you're making so much, and then what you come out with is half the amount. And at my house, it's usually gone in a moment. So I don't stir it up at this point because I like the chunkiness of it. But I've turned off the heat, and it's just going to set here, and we'll have a little bit more evaporation of the juices and everything. But at this point, I take some cinnamon and I just sprinkle it over the top. And of course, a little cinnamon is never enough for me. So I don't really have an amount that I can tell you, but just enough to cover it like that. In this case, I'm also going to add a little nutmeg, and I'm just going to grate a little over the top. Some people will say use nutmeg sparingly because they don't like the intenseness of it. Well, I'm kind of okay with that, and I just lightly spread it over the top. Anyway, you can use that apple pie spice is a real good flavoring over the top. But now what I do is I just let it set here until it cools. If you stir it, like I said, if you stir it up now, it'll become all break up all those apple slices. And if you want to put it through a sieve and make it really a saucy thing, then that's what you do. But this is the way that we like Grammy's applesauce. I'm back, and here's our final product. It's been about an hour, and it's cooled way down. And then I stir it up and mix all that cinnamon and the nutmeg. All the spices get mixed in. And you can see how there are still large chunks of apples, which is how we like it. At this point, if you don't like it like that, you can put it through a food mill or sieve, or any kind of, you can use a potato masher to mash it up to whatever consistency that you like. This, I think I would say, made approximately 4 cups. And even though it wouldn't serve a large gathering of my guys, it will certainly do both my husband and I for a number of meals this week. This is my recipe of my version of my mother's fried apples. I think hers were probably a little bit harder, but this is our family tradition. I hope you'd like to try it. It's the way we like it. If you are enjoying my videos, and now that the weather is cooler, we're coming inside to doing a lot more, perhaps cooking in the kitchen and different things like that. So please subscribe, share, and press that notification button if you want to be notified when the next video is uploaded. All right, thanks for joining me for this. See you next video. Bye.